the Gemini rigged demo. The Gemini Java API, sort of, such as it is. Java jokes on a final exam. The kids are doing all right. And the usual assortment of tweets, toots, and skeets. Welcome to Tales from the Jar Side. Greetings, my name's Ken Cousin, and I write this newsletter called Tales from the Jar Side, and this is the video version of that newsletter, where if you don't feel like reading it, that's fine. I'll be happy to read it to you, along with other background information. And again, think of it like a director's cut. The subtitle this week is, I asked the librarian if she had a book on Pavlov's dog and Schrodinger's cat. She said it rang a bell, but she wasn't sure if it was there or not. Yeah, maybe that gets two of them. After all, there were two gags in there. Pretty bad. Welcome, fellow jarheads, to Tales from the Jar Side, the Cousin IT newsletter for the week of December 10th through 17th, 2023. My name is Ken Cousin. This week I taught week 2 of my Spring and Spring Boot in 3 weeks course on the O'Reilly Learning Platform and my Java upgrade course as a no-fluff, just stuff virtual workshop. I also gave the final exam in my my software design course for undergraduates at Trinity College in Hartford. Here's the regular info message that you may care about, is that regular readers of and listeners to, and of course video viewers of this newsletter are affectionately known as jarheads and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter reader or listener or viewer. If you wish to become a jarhead, please subscribe using the button on the newsletter. This is located at kencousin.substack.com, as usual. Let's take a look at the YouTube channel. The companion YouTube channel is located at youtube.com/@talesfromthejarside. That's where this newsletter is going to go. And you can see that we are up to 995 subscribers. We are 5 short of a big, nice round number. I'm kind of hoping that it will cross 1,000 on Saturday this week, because that would make it a Festivus miracle. Oh wait, that probably deserves another one. Okay, so no new video this week except for the regular newsletter video. I am working on a video and I'm going to talk to you about that now. So let me close this up. And we'll start with the big event this week, which was Google's launch of Gemini. Now, that's actually happened over the last couple of weeks, but there's a few issues about it I want to talk to you about, especially because I entitled this section, Google Launches Gemini with a Rigged Demo. The announcement originally came on December 6th. Google launched its long-delayed, long-awaited, improved AI tool named Gemini. Now, the launch included a very impressive video called Hands-On with Gemini, interacting with multimodal AI. Here is that video, and you may notice that now the introduction has a lot of information about how this video has been adjusted. Let me start it over. We've been testing the capabilities of Gemini, our new multimodal AI model. We've been capturing footage to test it on a wide range of challenges, showing it a series of images and asking it to reason about what it sees. This video highlights some of our favorite interactions with Gemini, and then they go into the details as though it was live. Of course, it's not live. This is heavily edited, along with a lot of information that was not available on the original. So there were a flurry of articles that came out pretty quickly after that saying, hey, this demo is fake. Here's one of them that appeared at TechCrunch, the title being Google's Best Gemini Demo Was Faked. And they talk about what was missing, the gaps that took time for the model to respond, or additional text prompts that were thrown in to make sure that the interactions work out properly, and so on. So first of all, it wasn't exactly fake. It was not quite right and highly misleading, but it's what we used to call in the IT world on a regular basis, rigged. All the time gaps were edited out to make it appear like the responses were in real time. There were additional text prompts that were added that were not shown to make it more likely for the model to respond the way it wanted us to. And of course, the model that they're talking about was the Ultra model, which isn't even available yet. All these things were implied and even sort of subtly stated, but in a fashion that was very misleading. There are going to be 3 versions of this model. The Nano version will supposedly run on actually Android devices. That'll be interesting to see. The Pro version, which is the one that's coming, and of course it is out now, and then the Ultra version, which Google claims is better than GPT-4, but that's a bold statement and we don't really have any evidence of it yet. There's statistics and stuff, but until the model's released, it's vaporware. Even if they say, oh, it can do this, that, and the other, how do we know? I mean, they could show tables. How do we know they didn't make those up? Now, that's kind of a harsh thing to say, but if you start faking demos, that's what people are going to go to. The collective memory in the IT space is notoriously poor. I mean, the average age in IT is so young, people tend to forget anything that happened more than just a couple years ago. But this is what we used to hate Microsoft for. Microsoft was notorious for releasing what we now would refer to as a rigged demo. A competitor would come up with a project or a neat product and try to sell it, and Microsoft would say, oh no, we're working on that, and here's a demo of it in action, and it'll be out real soon now and just be included along with the rest of Windows or Office or whatever they bundled already, and thereby say, don't buy our competitor's product, just wait and you'll have all this bundled right in. And this was devastating. This wiped out a lot of products that way. And the problem, of course, is that this was overall part of their adopt, extend, extinguish strategy, which Facebook does all the time. And, you know, sometimes those products would never even be released. Sometimes it would come out and it wouldn't have any of the same capabilities. And of course, once the competitor had been knocked off of its momentum and lost all that growth that they would have had otherwise, they might never recover. And then, of course, the other major tech company wouldn't have to produce in the end at all. Now, nowadays, the big tech giants are so huge, they don't even have to play games like that. They could just wait for the competitor to be successful and then buy them and destroy it. I mean, Microsoft did that with Skype. I mean, there's just so many examples. I'm not even going to go into it. So Facebook, as I say, does this all the time. But Google can't just buy OpenAI, even though they have a stake in it. Microsoft owns 45% of that company, and many other major competitors are involved as well. So apparently, they return to the idea of a rigged demo. The purpose being, again, to persuade their business clients, oh yeah, you don't have to give all your subscription money to OpenAI. We're going to be better, and you just have to wait, and you already have Google stuff on your machines or in the cloud. Why not just add this and just wait, and the existing infrastructure will cover it all. But this isn't the 90s anymore. People are a lot more suspicious about the claims from various software companies with good reason. It didn't take long. In fact, it was within a day. Everybody noticed that, this is not what they said it did. This is wrong. This is misleading. My favorite channel, I should actually point out, is on YouTube.
Well, it's been another really busy week.
Let me go to his homepage here on his channel. Matt Wolfe, WOLFE. It's at youtube.com/@MREFLOW. Mr. E-Flow, something like that. I'm not exactly sure why that lines up with Matt Wolfe, but okay, maybe I'm missing something obvious. Oh, it's Wolf spelled backwards. Mr. and then EFLOW is Wolf, his last name, spelled backwards. Huh. Okay, for whatever reason. This is a great guy. This is a great channel to follow for AI news. He's very enthusiastic. He tries out everything. He has a good time with it. It's a little overly enthusiastic sometimes, but there's plenty of cynicism in this community. Sometimes it's good to watch somebody really having fun with a lot of what they're doing. He's got almost 500,000 subscribers, so, they're worth watching. Well, you see that he released 2 videos back to back. I think I have to move this over because it's been too long now. So the first one says Gemini is here and it's better than GPT-4 ? And that was the day that the announcement came out of Gemini. And then the very next day, it's faked. Google lied to us and other AI news. And I mentioned that in the newsletter. And I feel bad for him because you can almost feel the pain when he's talking on that second day about how the demo was rigged. And it's almost like he feels betrayed and all that. And I get it. Now, according to that article I just pointed to in The Verge, that Google's best Gemini demo was fake, the quote from The Verge says, Google says the video shows real outputs from Gemini, which is true, and that, quote, we made a few edits to the demo. We've been upfront and transparent about this, which is not true. This isn't a demo, not really, and the video shows very different interactions from those created to inform it, and you could check out the whole thing if you want. Now, what eventually happened with Microsoft and with most software companies back in those days is everybody stopped believing anything they said, that the demo was just assumed to be fake until proven otherwise. And that is kind of what's going to happen here too, is that nobody's going to believe any claims made by Google and by association all the other AI tools until they see the actual software. And the software that's not out is generally referred to as vaporware, pretty common term in the industry. Now, Google responded to the criticism by saying they were trying to inspire developers. Yeah, sure they were. And moved on to other releases. And that's why Gemini as an API is now out. So that's what came out early this week, and I started playing with it. My own experience with Google's AI tools was confined to Bard, and Bard is seriously disappointing. Its big value-added features were first supposed to be that it had access to the internet, which it sort of did, and also that it integrated very well with Gmail and Google Docs and all your other Google products. The problem with that is I have a business account and it didn't work for the business account. And why do I want Bard searching through my personal email? There's nothing in there I care that much about. I wanted to look at my business email and look at, my calendar and let me know what's going on and all kinds of stuff, and couldn't do that for a long time. I think you can do some of that now, but it took forever. And Bard, by the way, just was never very good. I was very disappointed. Had an extraordinary tendency to hallucinate, especially if I asked it programming questions. I get all kinds of random answers. So I tried to use it on a project. I never really made a video about that, but I was trying to build something up, and I eventually kind of gave up on it and worked with either Claude or GPT-4, which are good. Bard has since been updated with Gemini Pro, which is the one that got released and is out now and has an API, and supposedly it's much better. So I went to, now of course the internet search is stuck on using Bing, which, good luck with that. But some things you could ask. The one question I asked it was, why is the new Google AI model called Gemini? I mean, I like to know stuff like that. And of course, the response was that there hasn't been officially disclosed a reason for it. And then here's just some summary stuff. The duality and multimodality. They really use that term multimodal all the time with Gemini because they have the image generator and the text part and anything else all bundled together. The internet access. Of course, GPT-4's had that for a few months now. So, okay. Collaboration and teamwork. Another interpretation links the name to a collaborative effort behind the model's development. Yeah, okay. Stepping stone and evolution. Gemini's associated with, okay, I'm not even going to try that. Heroes known for their bravery and swiftness. This could represent Google's view of Gemini as a significant leap forward in AI technology, paving the way for further advancements. Yeah, good luck with that too. And then openness and connection, and I'm not even going to dignify that. I mean, the openness, no, not so much, especially when you're appealing to a rigged demo. I was waiting for a Castor and Pollux reference, and they did in the original Bard search had a nice picture of the constellation of Gemini. Ultimately, the precise reason remains somewhat shrouded in mystery. But anyway, okay, I put in lol and I repeat lol, especially on the openness and connection idea. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about the Gemini Java API, such as it is, because this caused me a little bit of, chaos, I guess, this week. So a few days after that initial announcement, I think it came out about a week later on the 13th, they released their programming model. And here is the set of documentation for that. Now they have this thing they call Google AI Studio, and you could go to that and put in queries and everything, and it's just a web interface on the programming model. I wasn't all that interested in that. I wanted the Java API. Now, if you look at the quick starts from the icons they show here, there's the basic Google Studio you can click on and get a key and do everything in. They've got a Python quick start because they all do. Gemini on Android, which means they have a Kotlin model, basically. Gemini on the web, which is JavaScript. Gemini on iOS, which is, I believe, Swift. And then Migrate from Palm, which was their older model, the one that was behind Bard. And if you look over here on the left, you see that they have quick starts for all of those languages, as well as Go, and even Android on device, which is presumably the Nano one, and then a link to the REST API. And the REST API is where I go, oh, okay, now we've got something I can play with. So I mention all this here, and I spent a couple hours right away figuring out how to connect Java to this, because as you may notice, conspicuous by its absence is any mention of Java. They did mention Kotlin, and presumably that means there is a Java API, or there's certainly a JVM involved. But when I looked at what they provided, it was restricted specifically to Android projects. You could not use the Kotlin or Android API outside of the Android world. I couldn't even download the dependency. So I went, all right, I've been making a whole series of videos on how to connect various AI tools to Java using the RESTful web service approach, using Spring and Java records and all kinds of neat features like that. So I spent I have to admit, rather pleasant afternoon mapping everything and figuring how to do it and making it all work. And just when I'd finished, quote, tinkering, and we'll come back to that term, my good friend and somebody I have an awesome amount of respect for, Guillaume Laforge, the former head of the Groovy project and current employee of Google, released a blog post entitled Getting Started with Gemini in Java. And here is that blog post. So it came out on the 13th, which is basically the same day as the announcement, but I already spent all afternoon tinkering, and he published this and said, oh, sure, there's a Java API, and here's the instructions, and here's the dependency. And then it hit me, oh, okay, you have to be on their cloud product, Google Cloud, to get access to what they call Vertex AI, to be able to work with it. And then here you can see some of the code. You instantiate the Vertex AI using a project ID that comes up in the cloud project and a location. You actually have to pick a cloud server, as it turns out. So this is totally, again, locked into the cloud provider. You cannot use this outside of their cloud provider. Then what this was doing is basically finding an interesting way to pass an image to Gemini and ask it the question, what is this image about? And you see that there they decoded the image into bytes and then passed it as part of the model to the Gemini Pro Vision model, and then asked it from this MIME type, what is it? And it'll give a response of what's in the image. Okay, interesting. There's a bit more here talking about a conversation, doing it streaming and with text and response. There's the little chat going back and forth with a chat session, and so on. And my reaction to this was, hey, wait a minute, where's the Java API in the regular one? And I asked about it, and the response that he gave me, which kind enough to respond at all, was similar to the response in the quick starts, in the demos, which is that the quick starts and the demos and the what we were calling here the Google AI Studio 101 is for, quote, tinkerers, for people who just want to try it out. But then if you want to be serious about it and get advantage of all their cloud processes, you can deploy or work with the cloud server. Now, I kind of objected to that right away. First of all, what makes us tinkerers and them not tinkerers? Oh, because we don't want to go through the additional complexity and expense of tying to their cloud server and learning how to use the Vertex AI and all of that stuff. I didn't like that idea. Now, okay, I have to be clear about this. I do have a tendency on occasion to get a little defensive and see, judgments where there were none intended. Maybe it isn't like that. Maybe the fact that there's no Java AI listed and no Java API listed under the quick starts or anywhere else in here is just an oversight. They thought, it's all right. We'll just use those others and leave that out. But I couldn't help feeling it was, almost personal. Now, okay, again, overreaction, but so be it. And thus this rant. So I mentioned this and I said, Guillaume said, there are like two variants of Gemini APIs, one for tinkerers, there it is, that term, and one for cloud developers, which has the Java SDK I helped design. But yeah, confusing. Not just confusing, off-putting, kind of annoying, actually. Now, I did check it out since he responded, and first of all, I determined, yes, you have to be on the cloud provider. You can't use it otherwise. But secondly, it seems to support Java 8. And a lot of what I do, my mechanism for mapping these REST web services with Java is to rely on features since Java 8. Things like records and text blocks and Spring features and that come in the latest version of Spring, which requires Java 17 and all that stuff. And it makes life so much easier. And if theirs is going to use the old version of Java back in Java 8, well, again, I'm not quite so enthusiastic about using it. Now, that's me. Your mileage may vary. So again, I was a little bit overboard here. And I said, in other words, if you want to use Java, but you're not willing to incur the additional cost and complexity of Google's cloud environment, then you're just a tinkerer rather than a serious developer. Sucks to be you. Yeah, okay, that's a little much. Now, Guillaume Laforge is awesome. Let me be very clear about that. He's done more to help the developer community than any 10 people I know, and he's 10 times the developer I will ever be. I mean, he really is awesome. But he works for Google. And he's a good employee, and he's kind of towing the party line here. Now, does he actually mean what he says on that? I mean, I have no reason not to believe that, but it is consistent with what Google would want him to say. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised he wants to keep his job, especially in these days when giant tech conglomerates lay people off for no reason. I don't know. We'll see. One last point. Does this experience mean I no longer trust Google? Well, of course I don't trust Google. I don't trust any of those giant behemoth tech firms who are all only after those sweet, sweet subscription dollars. As I say, I don't trust Apple, whose staggering levels of secrecy resemble the Politburo at its height. I mean, open source developers go into Apple and then you never hear from them again because everything is so secret. And also they decided arbitrarily that every iOS app that ever existed that goes in the Apple Store owes them 30% of its revenue into perpetuity forever. No appeal, no nothing. Wow, just because they want it. Facebook is the absolute definition of amoral. They have no morals whatsoever. They will throw everything at the wall, and whatever sticks they'll go with regardless of the ethics involved. And if they get caught and have to apologize, they'll then immediately look for a workaround so that they can continue doing it. I mean, they don't care about anybody or anything. They're not evil, they're amoral, which has a lot of evil in it. So Amazon, of course, sees its mission as adding a tax to every transaction on the internet for every product ever, and they treat their people horribly, absolutely horribly, especially the workhouse members I shouldn't say workhouse, although actually that's not a bad term, is it? No, I mean warehouse employees who they simply cannot wait to replace with robots at the first opportunity. I mean, all these big tech firms are evil in one way or another, but they're also inescapable, which is what they want. And certainly in my field, if I ever want to get anything done. Welcome to late stage capitalism. Thank you for coming. And that'll be $10 to $20 a month minimum. But not yet for this newsletter. Although we'll talk about it, but not now. So, okay. Enough of rants. Let's get into more pleasant stuff. This section's called Kids Doing Remarkably Well. I wanted to point this out. I used to include a fair amount of chess-related news in here, and while I still enjoy chess as a spectator sport, I don't play that often, but I really enjoy watching the grandmasters go at it and some of the best people in the world. It's really fun to do. I haven't mentioned it much in the newsletter in a while, but this result I had to say something about. There is this English girl, and I mean girl, I mean she's only 8 years old, named Bodhana. Now I'm going to guess the pronunciation, and I'm going to try to correct based on, I mean, rather than use my American accent, I know a lot of Indian developers. I'm going to guess that her name would be pronounced Sivanandand, but I don't know for sure. Perhaps one of my Indian friends or jarheads, if you could let me know what the right way to pronounce her name is, I will try to make sure I get that right. So it's Bodhana Sivanandand, I'm guessing. At any rate, she's only 8. She played in the European Blitz Championship for England and came in 73rd, which is remarkable enough. She now has a rating of 2105, which is incredible, but her performance rating in that tournament was a whopping 2316. She's 8. That's staggering. I mean, Magnus Carlsen wasn't that good at that age. Now, again, it's not really fair to compare kids. Kids change so rapidly, and so many things can go into performance. In fact, the very definition of being a kid is that they're inconsistent. But this girl has tons, and I mean tons of talent. She's going to be phenomenal, and she's only going to get better. I'm really excited to watch her progress. The listing here of the best results were all those wins, and she got a draw in the last round against a grandmaster. I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, she's only going to be about 1,000 points better than I'll ever imagine I could be. So, hey, good for her. There's a bunch of Indian kids doing phenomenally these days. Most of them are in India, Gukesh, Aragaishi, Pragnananda, and a lot of them go by one name. Like Gukesh there's an initial, and Prag has an initial. I never remember what it is. Prag's sister is also phenomenal, and she's going to be in the women's candidates matches next year, which is, again, an incredible result. But by Bodhana's standards, they're the old ones, I mean, they must be late teens, early 20s. I don't think any of them are in their early 20s. So late teens or something. That's a whole generation ahead of Sivanandand. I mean, oh my goodness, incredible. So we'll see. Keep an eye on her. Incidentally, if you're not into chess, but you are interested in prodigies and amazing athletes that you may not hear about, don't forget about Rose Zhang. Rose Zhang is the Tiger Woods of the LPGA. She went to Stanford, won everything there was to win, then went to the LPGA, won I think the second tournament she entered, placed in the top 10 in a major. I haven't heard much from her since then, but it's early yet. But that's another one to keep an eye on. Okay, next section. I gave my final exam in my software design course, and I tried making it as much multiple choice, true, false, mix and match as possible, because that way the system could grade it immediately and everybody could see their results and see what was good and bad. And I gave them somewhere around 60 questions. There were a lot, but I couldn't resist adding at least some humor. So I was sitting there Friday night, and the final exam was Friday night. How weird was that? And I posted this on Mastodon. Weird giving a final exam at night, and even weirder giving it on Friday night, but that's the time they gave us. Oddest question I asked was, what is Picasso's favorite Java keyword? And I gave them all the options, so I knew they'd come up with it. But I bet all of you, the people I'm posting to, get it immediately. And of course, the answer is abstract. I saw that on a Java crossword puzzle back in the 90s, when I went to java.sun.com, back when it was all at Sun, and that was one of the clues in the crossword puzzle. And I'm like, oh, abstract, of course, But some of the replies were great. Now, one guy another person I have a great deal of admiration for is Stuart Marks. Stuart Marks is one of the Java core team members, has worked on many of the APIs that I use on a regular basis. And he was kind enough to reply, what is Yoda's favorite Java keyword, and what is his least favorite Java keyword? That actually took me a minute. I had to think about it. And of course, what I eventually hit on was this. Exactly. So, of course, the favorite keyword would be do, and the least favorite keyword would be try. As in, try not, do, or do not. There is no try. Yeah, okay, moving on. Another developer who I've seen online several times, Rachel Greenham. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, I hope she'll let me know, or maybe I should just ask her directly. She said, I spent far too long trying to figure out what a cubist keyword would do. There are too many edge cases. Oh, God. Wait, that needs... Yeah, total rim shot on that one. That was great. And then, of course, Stuart replied to that with, indeed, there are certainly more edge cases than corner cases. Hers was arguably better, but still, both of those are great. And then Stuart, of course, he went all out. It's great. Marx's least favorite keyword would be class. Yeah, that makes sense. Jung's favorite keyword, synchronized. That one I had to ask him about. I didn't get that one. He pointed me to some Wikipedia page on how synchronized was one of the psychological mechanisms he studied. Okay. Clark Kent's favorite keyword was super. Very good. Very good. Thomas Hardy's two favorite keywords were return and native. Yeah, okay, far from the madding crowd doesn't have any keywords in it, but of course, Hardy wrote the return of the native. So I got that, even though I must admit I've never read any Thomas Hardy, but that wasn't that obscure. I got that one. That was good. So somehow I have to work in those Superman and Marx references next time. So what I really learned from this is Stuart Marx is really good at this. So thank you very much for the assist. Those were phenomenal. Oh, and incidentally, all the students got the question right on the exam. So that's good. I was worried I was gonna have to throw it out. I wasn't trying to get anybody. I wasn't trying to throw them off. Humor is a high risk, high reward strategy in teaching. It does break up the flow. It breaks up the tedium. It keeps things interesting. But when somebody's confused and under stress, they don't want to hear jokes. I get that. But everybody did well enough that was fine. Okay, let's move to the tweets and toots. Saw this statistic. Now, my son's a huge NBA fan, and I subscribe to this NBA newsletter called Good Morning, It's Basketball, GMIB. I really like it. And that included this statistic from someone else. I forget who posted it originally. It said in their last 55 games, the Detroit Pistons, the San Antonio Spurs, and the Washington Wizards were a combined 1-54. 1 win, 54 losses. And that single win was when one of them beat one of the others. Washington beat Detroit. Oh my. And of course, I sent it to my son, and that night, right after I saw that statistic, San Antonio went out and beat the Lakers, which I thought was awesome. But anyway, there you go. This section I entitled Mr. Swift because, hey, I normally don't like linking to, Twitter or the former Twitter, but this one was too fun to ignore. This was a comment that was made during I think it was a Thursday night game. Tony Romo, former quarterback for Dallas, who turns out to be a really good color commentator on football games, noticed Travis Kelce, and then if you watch the little 12-second video, I guess I could show part of that.
This is intercepted by most people.
There she is in the stands.
Kelsey's wife, Taylor Swift, in the audience.
Kelsey's wife, Taylor Swift, in the audience. Yeah, okay, good luck with that. So there's Taylor Swift in the stands, and, well, not in the stands exactly, up in her box, obviously, but still. Not yet, Tony, not yet. My prediction, which I was put in a newsletter a few weeks ago, was that if the Chiefs make the Super Bowl, Kelsey will kneel in front of her at halftime on live TV in an international audience and ask her to marry him, and then maybe she'll say no, and the entire internet will melt down. It will be awesome. That's just the biggest internet event I can think of ever. So we're right on schedule. We'll see if that happens. This one was labeled "'Tis the Season," and it's from the JRR Jokin Twitter feed. It says, on the 12th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. So what do we have here? 12 dwarves and Thorin. Yeah, okay. 11 Z's and luncheon. 10,000 Uruks. 9 black riders. Okay. 8 second breakfast. 8. Very good. Oh, wait. I suppose that deserves. 7 Palantiri, the Palantirs, 6,000 spears, 5 Istari. That one I had to look up. 4 Hobbitses, 3 Cimmerils, 2 towers, and of course, 1 ring to rule them all. So I looked at the Lord of the Rings wiki, and the Istari apparently is the order of wizards that included Gandalf and Saruman, and Radagast, who was in one of the prequel movies, and the other two I'd never heard of. Those were the blue wizards. Gandalf was the white wizard, and Gandalf was the gray, and Saruman was the white, and Radagast the brown, I think, and the other two were blue wizards. Again, it's more than I really knew. So, interesting. Good joke, though. Another seasonal post. Time for your annual reminder that, according to A Christmas Carol, Dickens, Bob Cratchit makes 15 shillings a week. Adjusted for inflation, that's $530.27 a week, or $27,574 a year, or $13.50 an hour. Most Americans on minimum wage earn less than a Dickensian allegory for destitution. Yeah, moving on. What are you going to say? This one said, I was going to wait to tell the who called it Secret Santa instead of non-disclosure clause until it was closer to Christmas, but I figured I'd totally forget, so I'm telling it now. That's from back in April, and then it got retweeted recently, and yeah, okay, no problem, retweet it. 'Tis the season for cats, so we got the jealous boyfriend meme, and over here is some kind of cat climbing toy, but of course what the cat's looking at is the Christmas tree, ready to climb and attack. On a related note, this one where the Christmas tree and everything is inside a nice little metal cage so that the cats can't get at it. Very good. Just to make sure we include dogs, this is a wolf saying, I'm cold and hungry. I see humans around a bonfire. Maybe I could ask for food. What could possibly go wrong? And this says 30,000 years later, we got this poor little dog with that birthday cake knit on top of it. Moving on. As in, that got dark quickly. This one says, kid, Santa, what's the story of your reindeer names? And Santa says, why, I named them after memories like Prancer frolicking through the snow. And the kid says, what about Donner? A dark countenance settles on Santa's face. The year was 1847. Snowfall had trapped us in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Yeah, At least there was nothing about dysentery, referring to the game. This was a Billy Joel reference. It said, this is totally unrelated now, moving away from the holiday. You know who's gay? Paul, the real estate novelist who never had time for a wife, and Davy, who's still in the Navy and probably will be for life. Lyrics from Piano Man. The response was, new headcanon, everyone in that song is gay except the Piano Man, who has no idea he's playing in a gay bar. And the staff and regulars have a betting pool on how long he'll take to finally figure it out. So far, John's ahead. And the response was, that makes the man, what are you doing here line way funnier. It all seems so obvious in retrospect, doesn't it? That was excellent. Here I have, do you want to build a snowman? And finally it says, when you're too lazy to build a snowman, somebody took snow on a lounge chair and added the eyes and the buttons and the nose and the mouth and the corncob pipe. Perfect. Absolutely inspired. So have a great week, everybody. This is the video version of the newsletter. I hope to have that new video version of this is the video version of the newsletter. I hope to have the new video out, which will talk about connecting Java to Gemini, emphasizing the process I followed to map to the REST API. Hopefully that'll work. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't, just so you can see that. Besides, I really want to hit that 1,000, maybe by Festivus. I mean, again, how funny would that be? I promise it will not be, if part of my airing of grievances, then it would be part of it. It'd be a Festivus miracle, to be honest with you. And now I suppose it's time to trigger the theme song. So thank you, everybody. Take care. See you next week.
Hey there, Des. It's time to tune in. Tales from the dark side, let's begin. Java, Kotlin, and Spring, oh my. Groovy, Gradle, don't be shy. Tales from the dark side, oh yeah. Crack open the code, let's take a ride. From design patterns to the latest trends, your weekly tech dose that never ends.